Breathwork is incredible in the sense that it works on 3 different levels. So it works on the awareness, conscious level, it works on the physical level, it works on the emotional and spiritual level.
Like when I did ayahuasca for the first time, and that was the first psychedelic experience I'd ever done, I came out beaten up. The first 3 journeys I did and experiences were the hardest 3 days of my entire life. Like you start to feel the experience and you're for me, it's always like something physical, like my fingers and my arms, I start getting tingly, my face, and then all of a sudden I felt like I was in that and I was going down this like hyperspace tunnel and my body was like tumbling and I was out of control and I started getting scared.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Conscious Collaboration. I am Jarrod.
I'm Chris.
I'm Elvire.
Today we've got a pretty exciting episode. Got some really cool stuff to cover. I don't know even where to start, but to put it in a bit of a nutshell, we're going to talk about Bufo, Breathwork, maybe even a little bit of Ayahuasca as well. So it's going to be a really, really cool little episode and we're just going to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I mean, when we were talking about it ahead of time, Elvie has an extensive background kind of in breathwork coaching and other psychedelic facilitation. Jarrod obviously is amazing at what he does on the facilitation side and understanding all this. And I'm just kind of like along for the ride, doing my thing. And, I've gone through the experiences. And when we were talking about it, I think it'd be really valuable to be able to share kind of like the journey and the different types of modalities, because like if people are watching this and just thinking about like, all right, I'm thinking about doing this for the first time, or maybe I've done psilocybin, or maybe I've done breath work and I've done intentional yoga and I've done stuff of that nature, but I'm contemplating doing a psilocybin journey or doing an ayahuasca retreat, or maybe doing Bufo or something to help, hit that next level of healing or self-awareness or something of that nature. The question is, how does that work? And like, what's that going to look like? And what's the good, the bad, the ugly, the challenging part? What should I expect? Like all these different things, right? Because at the end of the day, there's, I think, too much bad information out there being like, hey, just go do ayahuasca and all your problems are going to be solved, right? Mm-hmm. And nothing could be further from the truth. And so what I think would be really, really cool is if we all just talked about like, all right, we have all these things, and Elvie has this amazing breath work, process that she coaches people through. And what I'd love to start with is kind of starting there, because breath work, I think, doesn't get the credit that it deserves in a lot of respects, right? And a lot of people with the mindset going into these psychedelic experiences thinking that the psychedelic experience itself is going to heal them. Not true, right? Mm-hmm. The breath work is almost like a conduit or a bridge that can help with the healing, help with the integration, that can help with the preparation, that can help with, the back end of it all. So can you talk just for a minute, like what you do to help people utilize breath work? And we don't have to go into super detail on like what you do, but just high level importance of breath work and how it helps people break through, how it helps people connect, how it helps people, in that sort of way.
So breathwork is incredible in the sense that it works on 3 different levels. So it works on the awareness, conscious level, it works on the physical level, it works on the emotional and spiritual level, it works on every level of being human, basically. And what's really interesting about it is that as we go through sessions, because sessions are cumulative, there's sort of like a continuation from each session, a progress that we can see in each person. What we see is that the person gains more and more self-awareness, opens their breathing mechanism, and genuinely becomes more an embodied individual. And it's a very physical change that we see in people, and spiritual. It's a very embodied change that we see. We can really perceive it in someone who has breathed.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone, I hear you say that. And I haven't personally gotten super deep into the breath work. I've done guided one-to-one experience a couple times. I've done group breath work, but nothing to the level, that you've done it. When I hear what you just said, I think about like the stacking effect, right? Mm-hmm. And the process of that stacking effect. And I just think about like last year I did 8 ayahuasca experiences. I think I did 8 or 9 psilocybin, and then yesterday I did my first Bufo ceremony, right? And so like,
And he's still here.
and I'm still here, right? So like when we
What is it? Chris 3.0 now?
3.0.
Yeah, 3.0. Chris 3.0.
But when I think about all my psychedelic experiences and the healing process and my own journey of self-awareness and discovery and kind of like tapping into my subconscious, there is an absolute stacking effect. So that I can only imagine happens the same way with breathwork, right? And with that, what's your experience in utilizing breathwork to help people prepare and help kind of get their mind and heart space and energy right going into an ayahuasca ceremony or another?
So breathwork is super interesting in that it allows us to experience an expanded state of consciousness while also potentially keeping one foot here, So it allows for a very kind of slow, progressive exploration to happen of this other dimension of being. There's many dimensions, but there's sort of this like way in which we, in a way, detach from form and materiality, and that's a really good introduction because it's at our pace in a way. Nothing happens that we're not ready to experience in breathwork on some level.
So that practice of breathwork actually prepares you for the journey in that way. Like I know
Definitely.
Yesterday, I don't want to hop too far ahead, but yesterday when I went into my Bufo journey, like I remember having that experience where I was just like, oh my gosh, here we go kind of deal, right? And it's just like, because of the experiences I'd had before, I was able to kind of set into it and breathe through it, and
Exactly.
like it like I was kind of prepared for it. But if that were my first experience ever, it would have probably been overwhelming, right? Like, so
100%.
the breath work can be a like almost a way to acclimate to the,
Exactly.
kind of what they do in an airplane.
Yeah, for sure.
Acclimate to the pressure.
Different.
That makes sense. I mean, that just came to me. I don't know if that's accurate or relevant.
Yeah. One thing I found super interesting though, like I actually did my first breath work after I'd done plant medicine. And one thing that really like blew my mind was the fact that you're reaching these altered states of consciousness with breath work.
Yeah.
And that was kind of interesting to me because I have to admit, like, that I was kind of ignorant to it. It's, like I was one of those dudes who was like, I breathe all the time, like, what are you going to show me how to breathe again? Not at all. But like one thing that really blew my mind was that they're like, you can start really pushing up against stuff. You can really start to find yourself just going into these different places where you can start accessing different parts of yourself and look at different things. I found that super fascinating.
And what's super interesting is that it's your breath. It's
Yeah.
yours. It's free. It's always with you. It's very empowering in that way that you don't need anyone else to teach you or to show you. I mean, there's a learning curve, but like,
Sure.
it's not an external substance or.
It's a tool you always have with you. And it's like self-empowerment, right? Like when and you can master this tool and you can master this practice, and then you always have that fall back on. You don't need to escape to Peru for an ayahuasca retreat, to go work on yourself, right?
And that's like one of the big things that we're like trying to get across here is like, it's so important to have these modalities and have these tools that we can use day in, day out, whenever we feel, okay, I'm going to deploy this tool today, I'm going to use that. It's super valuable.
I love it. So let's kind of take this to the next level then, right? So you're also a certified facilitator. Is that am I using the right word?
I occasionally facilitate psilocybin sessions in one-on-one settings. I don't do group sessions yet.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Things to come. But I definitely see interesting links between the two, and there's definitely a lot of overlap between the two kinds of experiences. Yeah.
What do we see? What do we see with people who are? Well, let me say this a different way. If people are interested in doing a psychedelic experience from a healing perspective, right, and an actual ceremony, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because let's face it, a lot of people recreationally have used, psilocybin in a lot of different ways. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and, been like, hey, have you ever, done psilocybin? And they're like, yeah, man, I was at this rave one time and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like doing a ceremony in an intentional setting, focused on growth, focused on healing, like being guided by facilitators, who's creating a space and creating a container of a safe space. That way they can actually do this journey and all these things that you guys are amazing at. When you look at that and when you as you're going through, when people are thinking about maybe doing this for the first time, I guess is where I'm going. A lot of times, and I touched on it earlier, but a lot of times I think people think that just doing this journey, they're going to come out a different person. They're going to come out renewed and refreshed. And, my experience has been the complete opposite, right? Like when I did ayahuasca for the first time, and that was the first psychedelic experience I'd ever done, I came out beaten up. Like I came out, the first 3 journeys I did and experiences were the hardest 3 days of my entire life.
You look like you'd been on fire and put out with a hammer.
It was the it was the worst, and looking back at it, I wish I had like the ability to have somebody there like you to help me do some breath work to ground and coach me through that while I was going through like my integration of it. You know what I mean? But what do you see like as the correlation? Like I guess like help coach people, because I think there's probably a lot of people watching this that are contemplating, whatever modality they're thinking about, whether it's psilocybin, ayahuasca, Bufo, something of that nature. What would your advice be from a preparation, from a mental state? Like what can they do to help make sure that they're not going into this thinking that it's going to fix them, that it will expose them to a different part of themselves so they can then use these tools to help improve themselves?
So the way I like to see it is that plant medicine generally is like the key that unlocks a door. But we have to be aware of the door. I mean, we don't have to always, but it helps to have sort of already done some inner work to identify where the blockages are and what we're trying to sort of work with. It's not necessary, obviously, because very often we're thrown in an experience and we discover a whole new selection of different things we could potentially, address. But it makes it more focused, and let's say it's a better strategy for healing in some way to already have this sort of preparation and have walked the path. You have the plant medicine that can kick down the door in some very aggressive ways sometimes, but then you also have to continue walking the path and walk through the hallway afterwards. And so a lot of the work is before, a lot of the work is after, most of it actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation actually we were having the other day, right? Is that a lot of people seem to think that they can come to these experiences, they can come to these sessions and it's gonna change their life immediately. And it's just like life, and we were having a conversation yesterday after your Bufo experience as well. It's like every little thing is important, every little lesson is important, every little thing that we're doing is helping us gain a better understanding, a better foundation. And it is something that we probably can't stress it enough, is especially coming to breathwork, coming to Bufo, coming to ayahuasca, coming to psilocybin, whatever it might be, that a singular session isn't going to solve your life. A singular session isn't going to be, you've gone from stress, trauma, negative inner dialogue, you go do a really powerful psilocybin session and you just start being enlightened and walking around New York City, with this newfound wisdom. I think it's important to really, dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we've seen people here, people that, you've guided on psilocybin one-to-one journeys. We've been down here in the Dominican, and those journeys alone, it's the work after the fact.
Yeah.
Right? The journeys opened the door and made awareness to a certain thing. And I think, I talk about it a lot in my businesses, like the 4 levels of consciousness, like the unconsciously incompetent, meaning we don't know what we don't know, right? And most people are just walking around they don't know what they don't know. And we all have the areas of life where we don't know what we don't know. And that just is what it is. And so we're all walking around like this. And I think what happens is we open this door, we see this door, right? We take the psilocybin, we go down this ceremony in whatever capacity, whatever modality we're using. And when we do it, it's like, whoa, all of a sudden we have an awareness. It's like, now we know that it's there. So we get the second level of consciousness, which is like, we know we're like consciously incompetent. Before we were unconsciously incompetent, where it's like, we don't know what we don't know. And now we're like, oh crap, this exists and I don't know what to do about it, right? And I think that's the challenge a lot of times with this stuff is like, we get into it and if you don't do the work after, if you don't have the tools to integrate, if you don't have the people to lean on to help coach and guide you through it, because, you know, my wife always says, you know, my own thinking got me where I am. I can't trust my own thinking to get me out. You know what I mean? Like, and so
I like that.
Regardless, you have to use, you know, coaches, and you have to have people you can trust. And I think that's like people you can trust from a preparation perspective, breath work, learning the tools, getting the diet right, doing all these things, people to trust to have a container, and then people to trust to help you work through the process of everything that you saw and experienced and now have awareness of. And so, you know,
super valuable. And it's one of the cool things about like this collaboration stuff we're doing as well, is that like every person has different perspectives and different learnings and understandings, and everyone can really contribute with something that maybe they've experienced that will help with someone else. This sort of community thing is such a really powerful thing also, you know, it really, really is.
Yeah.
There's I don't know if you guys are ready to sort of dive into it a little bit. Super interesting thing that happened this week as well. So we've had Elvie down here with us as well for the last 10 days in the nature, which is medicine in its own as well, which is super powerful, you know, coming from Paris and then coming down here. There'll probably be a whole new episode in its own as well.
Totally.
Nature. But both Elvie and Chris also have participated in their first Bufo ceremonies with me this week as well, which was beautiful, and I'm super grateful to be of assistance in that as well. But like, maybe, I don't know, start with, well, Elvia was first.
So go first.
You went first, so you go first. So like how was your experience? How did you feel beforehand? Like, you've worked with other plant medicines, ayahuasca, you've done obviously a lot of breath work, which is super powerful, and also like psilocybin. But like, I guess, like how was the Bufo experience for you?
So it was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. I didn't really know what to expect. I was a little bit nervous, but I was very excited. And what happened is that I actually had to take 2 different doses, because in the first dose, the Bufo didn't burn properly, which was kind of meant to be. I mean, it was exactly as it had to happen. And so I took a sort of half dose, which is super interesting because I could compare the half dose and then the full dose afterwards. And so the half dose, which is super interesting, got me in a very similar space of awareness as breathwork, in the sense that it was very strong and like a very different kind of space that I was in. But the awareness that I gained and the insights that I gained was very similar to insights that I've had during breathwork. And then the full dose was a very similar experience to ayahuasca, but that's just me and it's different for everyone. But it was a very powerful, very healing, very somatic, very important medicine. And I can't stress this enough, and I'm super grateful to have done it here also.
Yeah, it was interesting the way, and it fascinates me. This happens with plant medicine a lot, like things just turn out the exact way that they need to. You know, we'd spoken a lot about it before. You've had some really challenging ayahuasca journeys beforehand as well, in a few different places, and one of them was really, really challenging for her. And the way it worked out, it was sort of like a handshake. It was a, welcome sort of style situation. It worked out perfectly.
It was perfect. Yeah.
How did you feel? Obviously there was some nerves coming into it, and there was a bit worried that it might be a super challenging experience. Like, how did you feel once you actually connected with it? And like, how was that experience for you?
The beautiful thing with Bufo, in my experience, is that once you're in it, you realize that there's nothing you can do.
You're there.
There's nothing you can do to every attempt of control prior to the experience seems very funny, like very, I was giggling to myself quite a lot throughout the experience because of how funny it was that I tried to control it, because you just can't. And that's the beauty of it. are forced to surrender, and that's the healing, and that's why it's not the first medicine that someone should try, because it's very powerful. But I felt very connected. My experience was I felt very connected to just this primal energy force that governs everything, and I really had a lot of somatic release, which tends to happen with me in general in plant medicine ceremonies. But it was a very sort of warm, loving, graceful kind of process, even though it wasn't like an insight here and an insight there. It was just an all-encompassing state of deconstruction and reconstruction.
Yeah, I think it's one of the big things with Bufo. It's not necessarily that like one is higher than the other, but one of the things definitely I think to be conscious of with Bufo work especially, I think that one of the more challenging parts of a Bufo experience is it is super powerful. It's a very powerful like feeling. I think probably the biggest challenge with it, and I don't know if you guys can sort of attest to it, but I think it's the speed that it happens.
Yes.
Unlike anything else, it's kind of like how would you explain it? Like those like roller coasters that you go on and you're sitting there and it just like takes off at 150 kilometers an hour. It kind of feels like that.
I've been watching this guy on YouTube. His name's Mark Rober, and like this science nerd, and my kids have been loving it. And he did this episode. It made me think about exactly this the other day. He did this episode talking about these space balloons. And so you take them off and they're helium, and like the weather channels use them to like measure the air all the way up to the stratosphere, right? And they go up really slow. And so like I was thinking like ayahuasca to me is like going up in a space balloon, and it's just nice and slow, and you kind of like it all kind of starts like you start to feel the experience, and you're for me it's always like something physical, like my fingers and my arms, I start getting tingly, my face
just throw up a little bit on the way out.
Sometimes emotions, stuff like that. You get all that, right? Like, and you start to experience, but you kind of like realize, okay, I'm going in, like this is happening, and it's a slow process versus like Bufo is like getting in a NASA rocket ship and just like you're going to Mars.
I would like to argue that can be a difficulty or a challenge, but also a huge advantage.
Yeah,
valid. Yeah, that's what everyone's different, right? Yeah,
I feel like for me, because I'm into keeping things under control, usually it's hard for me to let go. Feeling the progressive entering of ayahuasca, for example, feels like I'm trying to grab like onto control a lot more, whereas with this I just didn't have a choice. So it's just and the beauty of it is that it doesn't last that long as well. So it's
in this dimension it doesn't last. I don't know what's going on in the other dimension. But it's like in this dimension it kind of feels something.
What I would say to that though is like it kind of goes back to what you said before. If you've never had an experience with psilocybin or ayahuasca, and then you experience this, like just getting launched out of a rocket ship, like that could be overwhelming. That can almost, like, I don't know, like for me, because I had the sensations and the experiences, I was able to correlate the speed of it, the feeling, like it was different, but I was able to like also be like, all right, this is normal, it's okay.
A framework.
I was able to ground a little
work with.
Yeah, for sure.
It was sort of like okay, I've been here before and I know how to be here. Almost.
Just as a one thing which I think we've missed, we've actually never really talked about in any of these episodes as well, just as a foundational thing as well. So here at the Conscious Collaboration, we're not just like ordering all these different plant medicines and trying them out. I'm fortunate enough to have learned how to serve Bufo in Mexico, and also in correlation with my work facilitating ayahuasca ceremonies and things like that. I've been fortunate enough over a very good period of time to get to the point where I can serve these medicines. And I'm sort of even in my infancy of a journey of doing that as well. But I always like to just touch on that. I do believe I kind of know what I'm doing, which is a good thing. But in light of that as well, so we sort of spoke about Elvi's story a little bit there as well. Like, Chris, it was your first time just yesterday as well.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
It still feels...
How are you feeling? How were you feeling beforehand? How, like...
It's interesting because I never had any fear or hesitation on any of my journeys before. Like when I did ayahuasca, I never had any anxiety or anything like that. 2 a.m. the night before, because we did yesterday morning at 8 a.m., was the Bufo ceremony. And I woke up the night before at like 2 a.m., literally having a dream that I was, doing Bufo. And like to the point where in the dream, I experienced like the beginning kind of psychedelic kaleidoscope colors and all that stuff. And it freaked me out in my dream. I don't know why. It had no reason to like really freak me out. But I woke up in like this, like my heart beating, and I was pretty worked up, quite frankly. Like, and it was intense. And I just like for the next couple hours, I was like, I'm like laying in bed and kind of like not able to go to sleep. And it's funny, like it's kind of like you're standing on top of a cliff, and you're like jumping into water, and it's safe enough. You're high, but not that high, like, and so you can jump. Like when I was younger, I did a lot of cliff jumping.
I think you're talking about like high.
No, like water course, like elevation high,
Yeah.
And like sometimes you just got to run and jump, like the more you stand and look over the cliff, the more anxiety builds up, and you're like, oh my gosh, and you get all up in your head, and you're, you just got to learn to control your emotions. So that started happening to me. And by the time, and it's like you said, it was all meant to be part of the journey, and it's funny, like my journey, my experience started before even doing it, it started in the dream, and my spirit, whatever, was preparing me for this experience, because a big part of my experience was stepping into the things I'm scared of, and realizing that I was scared, really scared, like going into this. Like I wasn't like letting it on, but I was like sitting on the mat getting ready to do it, and my heart was like coming, and I'm like, oh God, this is gonna suck. Like I'm gonna.
Can I ask a question just before we move past the dream thing? Getting a bit mystical here.
Yeah.
Was there a correlation between the dream and the experience?
It was like identical. It was freaky. Like it was. I don't want to use the word trippy, but it was.
Let's just use the word trippy.
It was like identical. When the kaleidoscope like happened, it was almost like your cube thing. Like it was
cube, yeah.
The Metatron, it was almost like that, and then there was colors of like greens and oranges, and they were bouncing all over the place. And like when it happened, it was like the same experience. And then like you hit the singing bowl when I was in real life, after, and that's where it went beyond the dream, right? Like that's where like the dream stopped, and then all of a sudden I felt like I was in that, and I was going down this like hyperspace tunnel, and my body was like tumbling, and I was out of control, and I started getting scared, because of the dream, because of like all the buildup that I had. And then all of a sudden, like I just like almost like smoothed out, and I planed out, so to speak. And I was like, oh, I got this, like I'm okay, like I'm safe. And like I was totally like unable to do anything except for just like be on the ride for what it was. But really, like that's where the mental, like it all became for me. There was no visuals after that. There was no anything. It was just like almost like a bluish white light that I was just kind of sitting in.
Like a presence or a feeling? Was that the...
Yeah, like I was just almost like in this like different plane where I my eyes were closed, and I didn't see anything. I was in this like, just like different dimension where it was like a bluish white light was all I could see, almost like the sky, but like a blurry sky, like a perfect blue day kind of deal. And I just remember like it was just a lot of conversations, honestly. Like I have these audible conversations and like this communication with God knows what, like
that's a
whole different thing, right? Now,
higher self, something external.
That's like and it was interesting. It just became this dialogue with myself, about just stepping into life that I know I'm meant to live, trusting myself, trusting my intuition, trusting my instincts, believing in myself, stepping into and realizing in the big one at the end, and it all kind of went full circle. I remember just kind of going into laughter, like in the sense that it was like, dude, you were scared going into this, and ended up being like the most beautiful experience. You know what I mean? And it's like, and then what really hit me was like, step into the things that scare you the most, because they're not, they're always going to turn out better than you think, kind of deal. You know what I mean? And like the amazing part of life is on the other side of your fear. Like, so just get into it, and for me, that was a big deal,
Yeah, it's interesting, like, especially in the psychedelic space, plant medicine space as well, from people looking into it from an outside perspective, and maybe a lot of how it has been built up, or how the general mainstream perception around psychedelics and plant medicines is that like people are tripping out,
Yeah.
One thing that I think is just like super fascinating, I love listening to you talk about these things, and I've heard it over and over again. People talk about the experience and the things they see and all that sort of thing, but this foundation and this cause that it always comes back to is things like you spoke about, like this sort of, realization, connection with self. Fear is one of the things that are holding you back, these sort of truths.
Yeah.
And, in my sort of way of thinking, I think these like really deep sort of psychedelic things are going on around it, obviously, to help us get to these places, but it's also helping us get to these places of understanding that is just like more of those core things, these really core, simple things, but come to us through these complex processes.
And also, I'd like to add that it's not just realizations, like analytical mind understandings. It's like your body is also understanding in this moment, especially with Bufo, especially with ayahuasca, which there's like a purge. Your body is entering into a new state of being. It's not just, I heard someone say something and now I'm gonna.
That is the key for me. That right there is the key. Like, I'm like too intellectual for my own good sometimes, right? And so like I know all these things, whatever. What this has done for me is it like makes it so my body almost believes what my mind has been processing. And so now I'm not saying I've got it all solved, but I'm saying now for me, there's a different like level of confidence and belief and knowing. And it's like almost just like all the cells in my body just are like, oh, okay, you've been saying this for a long time. You preach this all the time, but now I kind of like, I get it. I believe you. I'm in. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
That kind of deal. So it's awesome.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, man.
Powerful week. Busy week.
It is. I can't wait. I'm honestly just looking forward to like we talked about the stacking effect all. And this was a continuation. I don't have time to get into the whole story right now. We'll do another video.
Yeah, I think we'll do another episode of it.
Sure. Like
Chris's Bufo experience.
Well, like this.
Yeah, I think it'd be good.
Fact, like of my last ayahuasca experience, which was just under a year ago. It was like 10 months ago. And this crazy was like literally just an extension of that. It was like the next part of the conversation, and it was amazing in that respect.
I find it beautiful in all of these practices and all of the plant medicines. I find that they all kind of follow each other, no matter what they're. Even psilocybin has followed my last ayahuasca experiences, and so there's always this like continuation of a journey, and that's why it's like the journey of a lifetime. It's not like a one-time.
Yeah,
it can be, but it's best.
Yes. Yeah. I think like even moving towards sort of wrapping up, you've sort of nailed something really amazing there, and a lot of what we're having these conversations and what we're trying to get. It's a journey, and different things and different tools and different realizations are going to come to us, and different modalities are going to be useful at certain points in our path. And some we start with here and use up here. It's not this like singular thing, and I think as we unravel that it's not these singular one-time experiences that are going to change everything. It's more again, building our understanding.
100%. Couldn't agree more. I love it.
So I guess like in conclusion, thank you so much for watching us here on the Conscious Collaboration. Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you've found this episode informative and a bit of fun, as well as we sort of explore around a few different things. I think we could be here for 3 hours if we wanted to be.
Yep.
But if you do like our videos, if you're finding the channel super interesting, the best way to support us is to subscribe and like our videos. I feel a bit weird sometimes when I say in that.
Leave a comment.
Maybe
leave a comment. Like, let us know about your experiences. If you have anything and this is relatable, or you think your story is just different, you've had a different experience, leave it in the comment section below. We'd love to hear different stories. That's part of the Conscious Collaboration. It's like just exposure for people and education and a community of people that are on this journey, right? Like, so just share it in the comment, like the video, share it, get it out there to people. I think that's what it's all about.
Completely agree.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Albie. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.